very therapeutic project. Not only was it something I had to do for school, but it began to be a project for myself. I made bowls and mugs and vases that I was able to use daily now, and it was really, really good feeling for me. It was really great after long days of school and stress with applications to just sit down and do something so relaxing. My first time trying pottery on the wheel was in Turkey, in Avanos, and my mom and my sister and I, we walked into one of those shops where they give demonstrations, and the artist, he made a vase under 3 minutes. He was so skilled, and afterwards he sliced the vase in half and showed how thin the walls were and how even everything was. It was so beautiful. And then he asked us in the audience if one of us wanted to come up and try. And of course my mom volunteered me. In front of a huge audience, I had to come up and try to do what he did. And it did not go well at all. I couldn't even make a hole in my vase. It was like a clump of clay on the wheel. And it was so difficult because this was a manual wheel, and it was really heavy stone, and you had to kick the stone to get the wheel moving. And so while trying to do that, I was trying to get a hold of the clay, and it was really bad. And so actually the artist, he called over his 7-year-old son, and he finished it up for me. That was a great start. And so I realized then I really wanted to try to make a vase on my own and be able to use it too. So today, with the help of my really close family friends, Susan Gordon, and a lot of classes in the Rockland Center for the Arts, I'm able to take control of my clay, and so much better than what I did in Turkey. And I'm really happy because now I can use what I did. So now I'd like to take you through the steps of throwing a piece and to its final product. So before the wheel, you want to wedge your clay. Wedging the clay is extremely important because it gets rid of all the air bubbles and those air sockets, and it aligns all the clay particles together so that it's really good clay and smooth to deal with, so you won't have any trouble. Afterwards, I like to have my tools nearby. I mainly use the sponge, the rib, and the wire. And when the wire, I like to cut a good amount of clay that I know, because the thing with pottery is you have to think ahead of the clay size, because when it goes into the kiln each time it shrinks significantly. So I always have to think ahead. The smallest bowl, maybe if you can see on the table, that was my first mistake. I was actually like this when I threw it, and it became really small. So that's a good thing to think of. After you get your tools ready, you can get started on the wheel. So I use the electrical wheel. I didn't want to deal with the manual wheel. And the first step on the wheel is to center your clay. And the centering part is very crucial because it also just helps the process be easier for you. And because when it's not centered, the clay is just moving around and it's really difficult. And this was the challenge for me, centering the clay, because you have to use a lot of force and arm muscles that I don't really have to push the clay. You have to have even pressure on either side of the clay so that it kind of goes up into a conical shape. And then using the meaty part of your palm and having your other hand guiding it, you push it down until it becomes a mushroom disc-like shape. And I had to do that. You have to do a couple of times to center the clay. So after you center it, you can begin the process of making a piece. So the first piece that beginners will make is a cylinder, and to make that, you begin the opening in the center, and you have to go vertically. And I use my thumb and my pointer. You can do whichever you wish. And I begin the hole and then you open it up, so you pull it towards you. And this is when the wheel is going not so fast, but it is going faster than it would when you're beginning making the shape of the cylinder. So after you open it up, you can begin pulling up the walls. So you have your fingers in the opening, and then your thumb would be on the outside, and you'd kind of pinch it and make a ridge. And then with your other hand, you would guide the ridge all the way to the top. So you continue doing that until the clay is evenly distributed around. And after you make the cylinder, it's really easy to make the vase. After you've brought all the clay to the top, you can begin to make that round shape. And if you want to make a mug, you can just make a handle on the side of the cylinder. And to make the bowl, it's different from the start. You would, of course, you would go kind of out. When you're pulling the clay up, you would go outwards and then up a little bit, and you continue doing that. And if you wanted to make a plate, I wasn't able to make a plate. It was really difficult for me. But you just go in a straighter angle. I tried to make a plate, but it ended up being kind of like a flatter bowl. But okay. So after you make your piece, you leave it overnight, or unless you have like a heating lamp, and until like it's not sticky, and then you can begin trimming. So, oh yeah, these are some of the mistakes I did. Because when you are dealing with clay, it gets tired. It's a term used in pottery. It's when the particles aren't aligned anymore, and so it just becomes weak and it just falls apart. So this is when I didn't know it was tired, and when I was trying to make the skinnier part of the vase, I was going in and it just collapsed in itself. So that's what happened. It kind of was cool, but I didn't want to keep it. And this was me trying to make a plate. It's just like I couldn't. Yeah. So yeah, trimming. So these are the tools I use for trimming. So you flip over your bowl or your piece, and you work on the foot of your piece. So you just trim away the excess clay, because you don't really want a flat bottom if you have a bowl or anything. And to trim it, you have to recenter your piece again. And you use a pin tool to recenter. So as the wheel is spinning, it goes really slow though, because you don't want your piece to just fly off the wheel. So it's happened to me. So with the pin tool, while the wheel is spinning, it kind of touches the clay a little bit. You want to bring it very close. Yeah, close, but not really digging into the clay. And the parts that it touches, that's the part of the clay that's closest to you, so you want to push that a little away from you. And so you continue doing that until you bring the pin tool again close, and it's evenly away from the clay, or it's evenly touching the clay around. And so after you've centered it, you can stabilize your piece by adding wet clay and putting it on the rim of the piece that's on the wheel. And then you can trim away your... So afterwards, when you're trimming your piece, it's considered a greenware. So after that, you begin the first firing, which is the bisque firing. The first firing gets up to about 1900 degrees, and it changes the entire chemical structure of the clay itself and rids all of the moisture that's in the clay, and it will shrink. And it can, after it goes through the bisque firing, it can hold moisture, but not as long as you want to. If you're eating food, it's probably gonna not really taste good because you're gonna taste the clay. So after the bisque firing, you can glaze your piece. And the glazing was a really fun part for me. And glazing, the color of the glaze is completely different than it will turn out after it's put into the kiln. And a lot of the black, if you want, that black color is actually a red color when it's a liquid, and the blue is a brown color, so it's really cool how it completely changes. So you can't really choose your glaze based on what it looks like before it's put in the kiln. And so after you've glazed your piece, you put it into the kiln, and that's the glaze firing, and that gets up to about 2,200 degrees. And your final piece is really glossy or matte, depends on the glaze you choose, and it's really satisfying because now I can use these bowls for something. And so now I'm going to show you a video. Oh, right. This is important. Before you glaze, you want to wax the bottom of your piece, because if you don't wax the bottom of the piece, it will stick to the kiln. So, and you won't be able to get it back unless you smash your piece, and that's not fun. And yeah, you just dust off your piece so that there aren't any bubbles around it. And then use the glaze, and yeah, you can begin your So I'm going to show you a video of my instructor. He's going to show how he does a bowl, and then I'm going to wedge and make a bowl, and then you're going to see the glazing process. And it was kind of sped up, so I hope it doesn't get dizzy. higher when the clay is higher, so I was able to work with something like that. But yeah, I would love to work with other types of clay too. Yeah? Centering. What was the most frustrating thing for me was centering, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the favorite piece that you made?
Maybe the flatter bowl because I wanted to make a plate so that was the closest I could get. Yeah?
Do you still have the piece you made in Turkey?
Do I still have the piece I made in Turkey? No, I didn't want to. Yeah?
Did you destroy any of them while you were making them?
Yeah, I did. The pictures that you saw, one of the, I didn't keep those two, but yeah, I did destroy many. Yeah? How long did it take what? To make all of them? Well, to make one piece, it took me about maybe 10 minutes. So, you have to do the math. Yeah? My favorite kind? It's the one that's kind of flat, the bowl that's a little bit flatter, because I wanted to make a plate, so that was as close as I could get to the plate. Yeah?
Are you going to keep trying to make a plate? Or
I think I want to try making a plate. Yeah, that would feel good. Yeah? The easiest to make was probably the vases, because the cylinder is the first step you would do. So after just making a cylinder, you just go out a little bit so it makes that round shape. So it's easier for me. Yeah?
Do you have any plans to go back to Turkey and try again?
I think I want to practice a little bit more on the wheel before I go out to the manual wheel, but hopefully, maybe. Yeah?
What was the most enjoyable aspect of the whole process?
Most enjoyable? Probably watching the piece grow as you're pulling it up. It's really satisfying. Yeah?
have you ever used any of them before?
I haven't yet. I'm really excited to use it. Hopefully I will really soon. Questions? Oh, yeah? Yes. To make a handle, you would roll extra clay, wet clay, and then holding it above a bucket of water, you constantly wet it and you just pull it down and until it's kind of like a long shape, and then you just curve it onto the piece, your cylinder, or the one you want to use, and yeah, so that would be Yes?
Do you think you'll bring any of these pots to college with you?
To college? I don't know if I'll have a chance to eat out of them. So